Hey, welcome. Today I'm going to talk about one way you may want to structure your pilgrimage. And I had posted an article on Patreon sort of explaining just the structure part, but I hadn't really gone into the specifics about how I structured my pilgrimage. And I just got back from it, so it's clearly on my mind. So I thought I would take the opportunity to talk about that here. My name is Aurora. This is Lavender, Hazelwood Witches. Welcome. Okay, let's first sort of understand that a pilgrimage doesn't have to be a spiritual walk. You could go on pilgrimage by doing a vision quest, by doing spirit flight, by being in a certain kind of relationship. There are any number of ways that you can access pilgrimage, but what I'm going to be talking about is the walk that I actually physically did across Spain and how I went about structuring that as a witch, being that it's also a Catholic pilgrimage. But lots of different people walk it for different reasons, even people without any kind of spiritual intent. So I just want to get that clear and out of the way first. I think what makes a pilgrimage potent, it's having several things in place. And when I mean potent, I mean it amplifies. It sort of distills and amplifies what's there. My intention was to honor my dead grandmother by walking with her on this pilgrimage. And I did it because she was Catholic and I was curious to learn more about her and what she believed, and also just to do it for her so I could feel closer to her. That was my basic intention going on this pilgrimage. So it was to connect to a spirit. Having an intention, why are you doing this, is going to keep you putting one foot in front of the other as you move down a path. Having a strong sense of purpose is, I think, one key piece of structuring a pilgrimage. That sort of leads me into the second piece, which is that pilgrimage is not a vacation. It's hard. Parts of it are hard anyway. There's so much. There's so many things that happen on pilgrimage. You see beauty. You see devastation. You experience it all. So I want to sort of like preface it with that before I say the next thing. So there are going to be times when you don't want to do it, and these are the moments where tapping into things that bring you comfort and tapping into beauty is really important, because those are the things that keep you putting one foot in front of the next. At least a few of the things that keep, other than your intention, they help pull you along. I can't tell you the vast amount of nature and beauty that was just everywhere, and that was one reason that kept me there. Had it been raining the whole time, it would have been a much harder thing to do. Granted, I would have gotten different lessons had it been raining the whole time, but my point being is, when it gets hard, having a plan in place of the things that bring you comfort, and that might be literally just stopping to immerse yourself and commune with nature, taking rests when you need them, and doing things that help just make you more comfortable on it. And also building in things that you're looking forward to. So maybe it's a certain meal at a certain place that you've picked out. Maybe it's staying at a nicer hostel or hotel or albergue. I know that there was one day where I was having some digestion issues, and I cut my day a little bit short, and I stayed in an albergue, which was a little nicer and posher than the ones that I typically was staying in, because it was private and it was attached to a restaurant. So it just had a lot more amenities, and there were less people, so there was more privacy. It was a little bit more luxurious feeling, because typically most of the albergues that I stayed in were either most of them were bunk beds, metal bunk beds, and anytime anybody shifts, the whole bed moves. There's snoring everywhere, farting. I mean, you get the gamut of everything, and you might have like 20 or 30 people in one room. My experience was not lavish per se, but when I had some digestion issues, having a nicer place to sleep where the beds were built into the wall, essentially. So we had our own little like pod with a privacy curtain, all this kind of stuff. It was just a lot nicer experience and helped me feel better when I wasn't feeling great. Doing things like that can be really helpful for morale and keeping you going. So that's something else to build into the structure of your pilgrimage. At least that's what I would recommend. So the next part of this is like the real structure of the actual pilgrimage. I think what really tightens up the experience and makes it magnify is having a beginning point and an end point, and they are the same. I actually built in 3 different gates that I passed through. The first was starting at my altar. I started and ended at my altar. Before I started, I lit a candle for my grandmother who I would be walking with, and then I lit another candle for my grandfather who I had asked to protect my home while I was gone. So that was my starting point here in my home. And then I met with a priestess. She called in the quarters, asked for ancestor support, and then we talked about intention and how I would support that along the way. And then she lit candles for me during each week while I was there. So that was the second gate that was opened. And then the third was actually in Spain. When I got there, I went to my grandmother's tomb and I put an offering down, which was this salt offering that I had created for Beltane. And I just kind of spoke aloud my intention to her and asked her to come with me, and laid some flowers down too for her and the rest of my family that was there. So that was the third gate I went through. And then once I got to the beginning point of the actual walking portion of my pilgrimage, I lit candles for her along the way, and that kept me connected to her. I also went to 3 pilgrims masses that some of the churches along the way offered, because I wanted to see what Mass was like. And I wanted to understand from her point of view, like, what the connection was. And I feel like I fulfilled that. I understand. And there were some very poignant moments just in terms of how I understood her and how I felt connected to her. So I was lighting candles along the way, and then at the end, I really wanted to get the certificate that has your name on it. You can actually walk for a dead person, and you can get their name on it too. So that is something that I really wanted just to have as like a connecting point to her too. It just felt like resonant with me to do that. I think if I wasn't walking for my grandmother, I wouldn't necessarily need to go and get the certificate at the end, but because it was her and having her name written on it felt really important to me. So I did that, and then I circled back and closed the gates. Once I finished the walking portion of my pilgrimage, I went back to her tomb, and I spread out some more of my offerings, and then I added some treats, some water, a feather, and then I cleaned the grave area. And then with pine cones or cedar cones that had dropped off a nearby tree in the cemetery, I picked them up and created a spiral on the tomb because I felt like that had more longevity than leaving flowers, and I was offering my energy. And also the spiral is connected to DNA, it's connected to past lives, future lives. It felt to me like an appropriate symbol for honoring who she was and our past and also the future. So I closed that gate, and then once I got back, I was received by the priestess, and she held space for me as I told the story of my pilgrimage. That was helping to ground me, because on pilgrimage, you're on another planet. Your lens is completely different because you are out of time with your life. It will just happen. And then I went back to my altar and I lit candles again for my grandparents, and then I did a ritual bath after that. So it really is a big spell in and of itself. I feel like it's a living, breathing spell. So having said that, there were different facets of the pilgrimage. coming full circle and closing all of the doors that you opened is another aspect that really contains the power and keeps it potent for you. It's magnifying. So that's how I structured my pilgrimage. If you've gone on a pilgrimage or you have other ideas about how you would do it, I would love to hear them in the comments below. Feel free to check out Patreon or Etsy for printable pages if you'd like. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.